Hello and welcome to Caucasian Journal video interviews. Our guest today is Rev LEBAREDIAN, Vice President, Omniverse and Simulation Technology at Nvidia in America and Advisory Board Member at the TUMO Center for Creative Technologies in Armenia. Hello Rev and welcome to Caucasian Journal.
Thank you for inviting me.
You said that you've been dreaming of establishing Nvidia in Armenia for years. Is it correct that you brought Nvidia to Armenia?
Obviously, it's never any one person that does anything of magnitude. There are many people involved, but the idea of establishing an entity and a site in Armenia for Nvidia started many years ago in my brain because I am Armenian and I've been at Nvidia for so long. I've been here for over 20 years now at Nvidia, and I've been visiting Armenia since 2005. In that period of time, I helped establish many of the sites around the world for Nvidia, and so Armenia was always on the back of my mind. And I kept waiting for the time when Armenia would be ready for a company like Nvidia. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started feeling like it was ready, and an opportunity came up after the revolution in 2018. I met with the Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, and then we invited him to come to our headquarters so he could meet our CEO, Jensen Huang. So we started discussions about potentially establishing a site in Armenia back then. But unfortunately, due to COVID and world events, the process was delayed. But the intention was always to open it. And here we are now. It finally happened.
Nvidia is a world-famous brand, but still, can you briefly introduce it to our viewers and tell us about your area of interests and responsibility?
NVIDIA is very well known to some in terms of what we build in semiconductors and chips, particularly to people who are into gaming and video gaming. And as the gaming industry grew, NVIDIA grew with it, and we helped it grow. Our chips started to become used for a new kind of um, computer science, a new way of creating algorithms, which was called artificial intelligence, or deep learning. This was born on top of our graphics processors that were used for video games. My particular part of this is on the software side. I work higher in the computing stack. My background before joining NVIDIA was in computer graphics and specifically for visual effects in the movies in Los Angeles for companies like Disney and Warner Brothers. And my dream has been to take the things that we did in visual effects and make them real time so that we can experience those worlds that we create for these fantastical worlds in visual effects, as if they're real, as if we're inside them. It turns out that doing that kind of simulation is far more important than entertainment. We can use this technology for creating new artificial intelligences, for predicting what the future might be of the Earth with climate change. We can use it for drug discovery. We can use it for creating the robots that will make our factories and warehouses efficient. There's no end of things you can use it for. my team builds the simulation stack and software to enable this sort of thing. We call it Omniverse.
Your company not just announced to step into Armenia, but it's promising to create 100 jobs or more. What does that mean to Armenia in general and to the IT sector in particular?
As far as the number of jobs, there's really no limit that's set by us. We are over 20,000 employees, I think 25,000 employees already, and growing very quickly. The number of employees we have in our company relative to our size in terms of market cap and our revenues is actually quite small. We're a very efficient company. What we try to do when we go to a new site is we build the site around a particular theme. Usually there's a champion, one of the leaders, such as myself, who has hiring that they need to do for their particular thing. But once that site is established, the talent pool that we can tap into is available to all the other leaders, to all the other managers who'd like to hire anywhere else in the world. So if we find that there's talent that's outside of the scope of the things that my team does for the jobs we have posted, say I'm a software person, so I don't do chip design. But if we find chip designers that are great, then we'll likely hire them as well into the other groups. So I believe that Armenia, given the rich talent that's available there, will find talent that fits many of the needs Nvidia needs, much more than the ones that the positions that I've posted. But besides just like creating new jobs, I think Nvidia coming is going to do a few things. First and foremost, it tells everyone else in the world that a big company that's on the cutting edge of technology sees Armenia as a viable place to do business, viable place to hire, a viable place to find the best talent in the world. And I think that will help potentially tip the scales for others who are thinking about opening an office in Armenia. Say, okay, well, if Nvidia is doing it, maybe I should take a look at that as well. I think that's a pretty big deal. The other thing that a secondary consequence, and one that I didn't quite, I suspected might be true, but I didn't really know how much this might be true. So there's a large Armenian diaspora around the world, much larger than the population of Armenia. And many of them would like to come to Armenia to live there, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, but they don't have the opportunities for their career that they would have elsewhere. By creating these jobs and the possibility of them continuing their careers without compromise within Armenia, I think we're going to attract a lot of the diaspora to come back and repatriate.
We all understand the importance of technological advancement for our countries and the importance of the diaspora. But still, as long as it's a business decision, can we ask, why Armenia?
We've opened offices in many places in the world, and it might seem kind of random why we do them in any given location. For example, recently we opened a legal entity in New Zealand, so we can hire more there. Most people wouldn't think about New Zealand as a place to be. Years back, we opened a site through a small acquisition in Toronto that was also done starting with my group, but has expanded to much more. In all of these instances, it usually starts around a kernel of talent that we see. So there's usually some link, some leader in our company knows a startup company in that location that's connected with the universities, it's doing interesting research, and we see kind of an ecosystem unfolding. and we're happy to be kind of aggressive in these newer tech markets, kind of get in there early, build relationships and bonds with the companies that are forming in the ecosystem along with academia. And in all of those cases, there's usually a champion on our side for that. So in this case, it happened to be me. I've been watching it for many years, and you could see Armenia is becoming uh, mature enough in terms of the areas we care about with artificial intelligence and graphics, simulations, chip design. There's companies like PixArt, which is Armenia's first unicorn. That was a big milestone in my head to see when will Armenia have a company worth more than $1 billion.
Right.
Um, and there's other great startups like Crisp AI and Super Annotate. And I've been watching them for many years, and they're really progressing quite nicely and quite rapidly. So we just felt like it's the right time to do this. By us entering the market, we'll amplify it, and then we can benefit from it as well.
This is excellent. I truly hope that many other companies would follow the example of Nvidia in the future. Let me ask you about the TUMO, the Armenia's International Center for Creative Technologies. TUMO and Nvidia seemed like an ideal combination of educational and business activities. Can you tell a bit about TUMO and how you got involved with it?
I really believe TUMO is extremely special, not just for Armenia, but for the world. There is only one thing like TUMO in the world, as far as I've seen, and that's why, even though in its original uh, formulation, the idea was for it to be Armenia only. The rest of the world has been begging for TUMOs, and they figured out how to franchise them out to countries like France and Germany and Lebanon and Russia, and now there are more coming all over the world. They're popping up. Um, the the idea behind TUMO is purely good. You know, to enrich the minds of the young generation early, so that they are ready for this new world. To build technologies and to be creative, and combine the two things together, and think about creating and working in a joyful way. You know, not just as something that you have to do to live, but something that you also enjoy and give back to the world. And you know, thanks to Sam Simonian and Mary Lou and Pegor, um, who conceived of this idea over 10 years ago. I think they started the project 15 years ago. They worked for many years to lay this foundation, and I I'd been watching it, but I really got to see it up close. I think it was in 2016. They gave me a tour, and at that point, it had already started bearing fruit. You could see there were high school graduates that had gone through TUMO who were now teaching there, and I was seeing them as potential interns that could work at places like Nvidia, and I realized that this is essentially the factory that will produce the brains that companies like Nvidia will benefit from. Um, they asked me to join the advisory board, and I happily accepted because, as you said, I think our Nvidia and TUMO are complementary to each other. There's absolutely no conflict. We have a pretty strict rule about our leaders not being on boards of companies that have conflicts of interest. But TUMO is just a perfect complement, and now that we are in Armenia, I see the potential of partnership between us to be one that will be very long lasting and bear a lot of fruit. I'd like for there to be a closeness between the TUMO schools and the Nvidia sites, so that the young people in Armenia can see what their future might look like if they were to come work at places like Nvidia, and the Nvidia employees can have their children attend TUMO, and potentially they can go do guest lectures and workshops and teach there, and create this virtuous cycle.
TUMO is one of those unique Armenian projects that we at Caucasian Journal would like to cover in more detail, with a special emphasis on its usability as a model for other countries and our region in particular. Can you tell a bit about the usability or applicability of TUMO elsewhere? And my other question is there a connection between your work at Nvidia and your role at TUMO?
I don't think anything precludes any country from getting a TUMO. We're seeing that this happen in front of our eyes right now in many countries. I believe the first one that was created outside of Armenia was in Paris, and that was done at the request of the mayor of Paris. The name escapes me right now, but she came to visit TUMO, fell in love with it, and said she needed one in France, and they provided space near the Louvre, right in the center of Paris, and built the first one there. Then Angela Merkel visited Armenia and saw it and said she wanted one too, so they built one in Germany, and now we have more being built in both of those countries. There's already one in Lyon, I think, and there's 3 or 4 more in the works in Germany. But we have them in Beirut, in Moscow, in Albania. There's many in the works, from what I understand, in Luxembourg, in Tokyo, in Los Angeles. So they're popping up all over the place. I think maybe the hardest thing about creating a TUMO is adherence to the original principles. Sam was emphatic that part of the dream is that the education that TUMO provides is free to the youngsters. That the way to fund the TUMOs should be outside of paying for tuition, so that it's equally available to all children, not just those that can afford it. And so in Armenia, they've made that work by the unique kind of business model where they rent out some of the real estate to other companies, and that pays for it. That's not necessarily easy or viable in some other places, but they're figuring it out. They're figuring out ways to do that. As far as what Nvidia's involvement with TUMO is, so far it's been mostly just me as an advisor and doing what I can as an individual to contribute to TUMO. I have had some of my employees do workshops and lectures there in a non-official capacity. But now that we're present in Armenia and can work directly with each other, there's many other things that are in the works for how we can more formally contribute to TUMO and work with them to help the next generation of employees at Nvidia be formed.
You have a unique experience as American business professional with a long-time exposure to Armenian affairs. If you were asked to name, say, 3 main problems that must be solved to allow for a faster progress of Armenia, what would come to your mind? That might relate to investment climate, business culture, or something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the elephant in the room number one thing, of course, is that there needs to be a long-standing peace. I mean, I don't want to discuss politics here. I'm not a political person. I'm a businessman, but that obviously that must be resolved in some way so that more businesses feel comfortable investing in Armenia. Second, um, from the perspective of technology and computing in particular, Armenia needs to develop computing infrastructure. It's exactly the same thing as building infrastructure like roads and power lines and uh, access to water and those things. If you don't have computing infrastructure, we don't have if you don't have data centers and supercomputers and just all the things you need to run a tech company and develop things, then technology can't develop. So there needs to be a climate around advancing the infrastructure for computing. And I don't know if there's a big third thing. Those two things are, I think if you handle those, the rest will come, because there's a great amount of talent that's in Armenia. Armenians have a love for education and science and technologies, as well as the creative arts. Unfortunately, the opportunities haven't been available in Armenia. So a lot of the diaspora in general hasn't really repatriated. There's few that have come back, and we've had a lot of brain drain. We've had the really great talent leave to go develop their careers and make lives for themselves elsewhere. But if we can create the conditions by which people can have successful lives and prosper within Armenia, I'm confident that even though Armenia is a small country and the total world population of Armenians is relatively small, the percentage of Armenians that are capable, that could contribute greatly to high technologies, to computer science and computer engineering. There's a lot of us, and I think that will immediately resolve itself. People will come back.
Can you name 3 or more advantages or successful experiences that Armenia can export and share with the rest of the world?
One of the uh, secrets to TUMO success, the one that people, it's not really a secret, it's just people don't quite understand it, over many other attempts that have been made in this area all around the world, is that TUMO didn't just build a place and put some computers in there and throw the children into this space with random teachers. They really invested in both the content of what they're teaching, as well as the technology behind the teaching itself, and closely monitored it to see how successful different tactics they chose work. One of the things that's really unique about how TUMO works is that the children are in control of their curriculum. They decide what they want to learn. There's, I believe, something like 17 different disciplines they can choose from, between the technologies like robotics and web page design and game development to music and video production. They choose whatever number of those things they want to do, and TUMO's developed the software that lets them choose their own path to learning those things. They can go deep into one thing or very wide into many things, and it's kind of like a gamification of the learning process itself. They feel like they are in control of their destiny, and They have to complete one step to get to the next. And as a result, the engagement from the children is something that I've never seen before anywhere else. If you ever get a chance to go to TUMO, I highly recommend you stay to see when the shifts change. I think on a normal day, they have 3 different shifts. Half an hour before the shift change happens, the lobby of the TUMO building is already packed with all the children. I've never seen teenagers ever going early to go take any class anywhere. And when you go walk around TUMO in the open areas where they're working at their workstations, the children aren't messing around, chatting with each other or playing. They're deep inside their work and completely engaged. I think it's because we've given them agency over their own learning. And TUMO has created a system that makes it joyful to learn, and makes the individuals feel like they are progressing themselves without it being this hyper competitive torture, where all the children are comparing themselves with each other in different places. Everybody is just focused on their own thing and progressing their own way and their own path. And that turns out to be, I think, a better model for how the world works. We don't all take the same tests at the same time in the same subjects once we're adults working in our respective careers. Everybody is in control of their own destiny, and TUMO is doing a good job of teaching them that early. So that's the main thing I think that needs to be exported, and a big part of that is the technology they've developed, the software that allows the children to be in control of their learning. That combined with the content that they put inside the system is unique, and that's available for anybody in any country who wants to go form a TUMO to use. They can franchise the franchise TUMO with all of this great content and not develop it themselves. Even though I live in Silicon Valley, there's nothing in Silicon Valley like TUMO. And I've been searching for something like it forever. They're finally creating one in Los Angeles, but we still don't have one in the Bay Area, in the Valley. Hopefully that will come next. Where are you located?
I'm located in Belize, and I would be happy to contribute to establishing TUMO here.
I'd be surprised if TUMO isn't already in discussions with someone in Georgia and Tbilisi about that.
We will definitely be interested in covering TUMO in more detail. After all, Caucasian Journal is about what's happening in the South Caucasus, and all the best experiences which our countries have must be implemented by the neighbors.
I agree. We're
So
all small countries, and I think prosperity for each of the countries is dependent on the prosperity of the others. So it's best to help each other and learn from each other.
what's your view on the IT perspectives of Armenia and our region in particular? Can IT and the tech innovation sphere become a locomotive for the economy in the future?
It's harder for me to speak about the region as a whole as much, but I believe definitely for Armenia, I think that's Armenia's only option. Armenia has fewer natural resources and is landlocked. The only real natural resource in Armenia is the brains of the people that are in Armenia. That's our primary natural resource. And every industry in the world is now dependent on technology. There's no way to progress in any important field unless there's progress in computing and high technologies along with it. So I think for Armenia, the only path to prosperity economically is going to be one where Armenia becomes a a technology center that leverages its size, it being small, as an advantage. Being small, I kind of think of Armenia uh, potentially as like a startup. It's a startup country. It could be nimble and agile and focused in a way startups are, that big companies that have been established for a long time, they can't do that. And I think big countries can't either. So if Armenia can figure out niche areas of high technology where it could go very deep and be world class in that, then I think it has a path to prosperity. And I think that should be shared with everyone in the region. Uh, I I believe that um, it, technology is not a zero-sum game. Um, we, but the nature of technological advancement means that we're creating more, we create more value, and the more people that participate in it and work together, the greater the value that we create. So I don't see the creation of technology as a competitive thing. It doesn't have to be. It's often phrased that way. And Armenia having neighbors that are also excelling in these areas is beneficial to Armenia. And I think the whole region can benefit from having a larger talent pool that works with ideas exchanging between borders and people exchanging between borders to um, work together on greater projects than they could do alone.
I can't help asking you about your vision of the future, and if there are any other comments or anything else you would like to share with us, the floor is yours.
Um, the one true benefit of modern computing and technology is that um, essentially borders have disappeared. It wasn't that long ago that the work that people did in technology was pretty local. Like you could, whatever you created was was only to sell to local markets. Whether you created a car or plumbing or electrical lines or whatever it was, you were very limited. But the way technology works now, you can produce technology anywhere in the world and sell that technology to everywhere in the world. This is a huge opportunity for developing countries, for small countries, for startup countries. They don't have to be limited by the geographic and historical constraints that that have always been there in the past, limiting their growth. If we can exploit this attribute of technology, I think that's a way to kind of get a shortcut to development and jumpstart these economies that weren't available before. It's not a given that it'll just happen. It's something that you have to be very focused and work towards methodically. I think you need many things to come together from the private sector as well as the governments and public sector. But it's definitely doable, and it gives us a lot of hope.
Thank you very much. I sincerely wish you all the best with the activities of Nvidia in Armenia and your work at TUMO. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a great pleasure.
We cover what matters. Caucasian Journal.